You finally awakened, you did the work, expanded your consciousness, and now you're facing something nobody warned you about. You've lost all motivation. Everything you used to care about feels meaningless. Goals that drove you for years now feel hollow. You look at your career ambitions and feel nothing. Your relationships and feel detached. Your purpose has evaporated. And you're terrified because you don't know if it's ever coming back. Carl Jung discovered that this collapse of motivation after awakening isn't a problem. It's proof that genuine transformation occurred. But what's causing it will shock you. Because Jung found that the motivation you lost wasn't real to begin with. It was driven by psychological structures that awakening just killed. And what replaces it is something completely different. Today I'm revealing why Jung said, losing all motivation after awakening is the most natural, necessary thing that can happen, and why fighting to get it back is the worst thing you can do. Here's what Jung understood that changes everything. Your old motivation wasn't coming from your authentic self. It was coming from your ego, the false identity you constructed to survive and succeed. That ego had desires, ambitions, purposes. But awakening killed that ego. And when it died, everything it wanted died with it. Jung called this the death of borrowed motivations. Before awakening, you wanted things because your ego identity wanted them. Success because you were the ambitious one. Connection because you were the loving one. Achievement because you were the capable one. These wants felt real, but they were products of a constructed self, not your true nature. Awakening reveals this construction, and once you see clearly that your motivations were based on a false self, you can't maintain them. It's not that you've lost your drive, you've lost the psychological structure that was generating drive. And this creates a void where motivation used to be. The first reason explains why this feels so devastating. Jung's first insight: you've lost motivation because the version of you that wanted things has literally died. Not metaphorically died. Psychologically ceased to exist. And without that self, the desires it generated can't continue. Before awakening, you had clear wants, career goals, relationship desires, life purposes. These weren't random. They came from your ego identity. I want success because I'm someone who achieves. I want love because I'm someone who connects. I want meaning because I'm someone who seeks. The ego generated motivation by creating identity-based desires. But Jung discovered that awakening kills this ego structure, not just changes it, kills it. And when it dies, all the desires it generated die too. You look at your old goals and can't remember why you wanted them. Not because you've matured past them, but because the psychological entity that wanted them doesn't exist anymore. One of Jung's patients described this. I'd spent 10 years building my business. It was my passion, my identity, my purpose. After awakening, I looked at it and felt nothing. Not burnout, not disillusionment, just complete absence of caring. The part of me that wanted business success, the ambitious, driven version of me, had dissolved. I couldn't force myself to care because there was no self left to do the forcing. This is what Jung meant by motivational death. You haven't lost motivation, you've lost the self that was motivated. And without that self, motivation can't exist. You're not depressed, you're between identities. The old one died, the new one hasn't formed yet. And in between, there's no one to want anything. You'll recognize this if you look at your old goals and feel confusion more than desire. If you can't remember why you cared about things that used to consume you. If trying to force motivation feels like asking a corpse to walk. The self that wanted isn't there anymore. But ego death is just the first layer. The second reason goes deeper. You've lost motivation because awakening revealed that all your purposes were constructed meanings, not discovered truths. And once you see meaning as invented rather than inherent, you can't maintain motivation based on it. Before awakening, your purposes felt real, making a difference felt meaningful, building something felt important, achieving goals felt significant. But Jung observed that awakening includes a devastating recognition. All meaning is constructed. Nothing inherently matters. Every purpose is an agreement you've made with yourself about what's important. This recognition destroys motivation at its source. If meaning is invented, why invent purposes that require effort? If significance is constructed, why construct significance around difficult goals? If nothing inherently matters, why make anything matter enough to pursue it? One of Jung's analyses described this collapse. I was working toward becoming a professor, years of effort toward this goal. After awakening, I saw clearly. Being a professor only matters because I decided it matters. There's nothing objectively meaningful about it. I'd constructed a purpose, invested in it, and now I could see the construction. The goal didn't disappear. The meaning I'd built around it did. And without meaning, I had no motivation to continue. This is what Jung called the nihilistic void. You're not nihilistic in the cynical sense. You've just seen that meaning is created, not discovered. And this recognition temporarily destroys your ability to invest in created meanings. You see through them too clearly to believe in them anymore. You'll notice you can't take anything seriously anymore, not from cynicism, but from seeing the constructed nature of significance. Your old purposes feel like games you're no longer willing to play. Not because the games are bad, but because you can see they're games. And games only work if you forget they're games. But seeing through meaning is just one aspect. The third reason reveals another source of motivational collapse. Here's what Jung observed. After awakening, your psyche redirects all available energy toward internal integration. This leaves nothing for external motivation. You're not lazy. You're using all your resources for invisible psychological work. Think about what's happening inside you. You've undergone massive transformation, ego death, shadow integration, consciousness expansion. Your entire psychological structure is reorganizing. This requires enormous energy. And Jung discovered that the psyche prioritizes integration over external achievement. It pulls energy from motivation and redirects it to consolidation. One of Jung's patients described this. I was exhausted constantly, not physically, energetically. I'd sleep 10 hours and wake up drained. I couldn't muster motivation for anything external because all my energy was being used internally. Jung explained, my psyche was doing profound integration work, rebuilding psychological structures, processing decades of material, creating new neural pathways. This took everything I had. No energy remained for external goals. This is what Jung meant by the integration drain. Your system is reorganizing at such a deep level that external motivation becomes impossible. Not because you've given up, but because all available resources are being used for internal work you can't see or control. You'll recognize this if you're exhausted despite adequate rest. If the thought of pursuing goals feels impossible, not from resistance, but from genuine depletion. If you're doing nothing but feel like you're working constantly. This isn't depression. It's your psyche prioritizing internal over external. But energy drain is just one factor. The fourth reason reveals something even more fundamental. If you've lost all motivation after awakening, if your old desires feel dead, your purposes feel hollow, your energy is depleted, Jung would say, this isn't failure, This is the necessary void before new motivation emerges from your authentic self. Before we continue, check out our new guide, True Self-Discovery, with 24 practical reflection exercises designed to help you find your way within. Click below to get True Self-Discovery. Now, these final reasons reveal why this void is actually serving you. Jung's fourth insight. You've lost motivation because your psyche is refusing to generate false desires. It's waiting, patiently, stubbornly, for authentic desire to emerge from your true self. And this waiting period can last months or even years. Before awakening, your ego could manufacture motivation on demand. It could create goals, generate purposes, produce drive even when nothing authentic was calling you. But Jung discovered that after awakening, this manufacturing capacity breaks. Your psyche won't produce false motivation anymore. It will only move when genuinely called. One of Jung's analyses described this waiting. Everyone kept asking what I wanted to do with my life. I had no answer, not from not knowing, from waiting. I could feel something wanting to emerge, but it wasn't ready yet. My psyche refused to force anything. Jung said this was healthy. I was waiting for authentic desire rather than constructing false purposes. But the waiting was agony. I felt lazy, aimless, lost. He said I was actually being patient. This is what Jung meant by authentic emergence. Your true self has desires, but they emerge organically, not on demand. They arise when ready, not when you want them. And your awakened psyche knows this. It won't manufacture false motivation to fill the void. It waits for what's real. You'll notice you can't force yourself to care about anything, not from apathy, but from your psyche rejecting false engagement. If you're waiting for something to genuinely call you, rather than deciding what should call you, if you trust that desire will return, but know it has to be real this time. This isn't passivity, it's patience for authenticity. But waiting for authenticity isn't the only reason. The fifth reveals the deepest purpose of this collapse. Jung's final revelation. The motivational collapse is teaching you something radical, that you can exist without purpose, without drive, without constantly becoming something. And this capacity to simply be, without needing to do or achieve, is the foundation of awakened living. Before awakening, you needed motivation to feel alive. Purpose gave you identity. Goals gave you direction. Achievement gave you worth. Constant striving made you feel like you existed. But Jung discovered that awakened consciousness learns a different way of being. Existence doesn't require justification through achievement. One of Jung's most developed patients described this shift. I'd spent 40 years driven by purpose, always becoming something, always working towards something. Then awakening killed my drive, and I panicked. If I'm not pursuing anything, who am I? Jung asked, can you just exist? I didn't know how. I'd never just been. I'd always been becoming, learning to exist without purpose, without drive, without constant motion. That was the hardest lesson, but also the most liberating. This is what Jung called being versus becoming. You're transitioning from a life based on constant achievement to a life based on presence. From needing purpose to justify existence to existing without needing justification. From driven to simply alive. You'll recognize this if you're slowly becoming okay with doing nothing. If you're discovering you can exist without achievement. If the panic about lack of purpose is giving way to strange peace. This isn't giving up. It's learning that being alive is enough, even without purpose driving you. Why you lost all motivation after awakening. The ego that wanted things died, and its desires died with it. You've seen through constructed meaning and can't maintain purposes you know are invented. Your energy is being used for integration, leaving nothing for external goals. You're waiting for authentic desire, refusing false motivation. You're learning to exist without needing purpose. Discovering being is enough. Jung would want you to understand. This motivational collapse is temporary but necessary. Your old motivation was ego-driven, based on false self, constructed meanings, borrowed purposes. It had to die. New motivation will emerge, but from a different source. Not ego, but self. Not constructed purposes, but authentic calling. Not driven by lack, but moved by genuine desire. Most people panic when this happens. They think they've become depressed, lazy, or lost. They try to force motivation back, recreate purposes, manufacture drive. But Jung insisted, the void is doing necessary work. It's clearing space for authentic motivation that can only emerge when false motivation has completely died. The waiting is brutal. Weeks, months, sometimes years of feeling purposeless, directionless, unmotivated. But Jung observed that those who endure this void, who don't force false motivation to fill it, eventually discover desires that are genuinely theirs, not shoulds, not borrowed from culture or family or ego, real wants that arise from their authentic nature. If you've lost all motivation after awakening, if nothing drives you, nothing excites you, nothing feels worth pursuing, Jung would tell you, don't force it back. You're in the void between false motivation and authentic desire. And this void, as uncomfortable as it is your friend. Let yourself be unmotivated. Let yourself have no purpose. Let yourself exist without drive. This isn't permanent. It's transitional. Your psyche is doing essential work, killing what was false, creating space for what's real. New motivation will come, but it will be different. Not ego-driven, but self-called. Not manufactured, but emerged. Not forced, but natural. You'll know the difference because false motivation feels like should. I should want this. I should do this. I should care about this. Real motivation feels like pull. I'm drawn to this, called by this, genuinely moved by this. Trust the void. As purposeless as you feel, your psyche knows what it's doing. It's refusing to settle for false drive. It's waiting patiently for authentic desire. And when that desire emerges, and it will be worth every moment of this uncomfortable waiting. You're not broken. You're not depressed. You're not lost. You're between motivational structures. The old one based on ego has died. The new one based on self is forming. And in between, you're learning the most radical lesson. You can exist without needing purpose to justify your existence. That's liberation, not loss. Subscribe to explore Jung's insights on what emerges after motivational collapse, authentic desire from the self. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.